So in my last video where I went through a basic look into how I would have written Dead Space 2, giving you all the idea of what direction I would have taken the story in that video I talked about my first time. You know, my first time with Dead Space, but I only spoke on it briefly, so in this video, for those of you that are interested where I joined the recombinated scene and what was rattling through my mind when I first took to the outbreak of terror, here is my introduction to Dead Space. The year was 2010. I was 18 at the time, which seems like an eternity ago. Looking back at myself, there would not be much I would be willing to change, as yes, I did have my faults, but if the events in my life did not play out how they did, I do not believe that I would feel as connected to Dead Space or to Isaac as I do now. I was like any normal young adult. I had just left college, which many would joke about, as I had finished my first and only year of hospitality in catering. The joke was that before doing catering, I had finished a year of college in the subject of animal care, so many would laugh about me learning how to upkeep and tend to the needs of animals only to further butcher them later on, but perhaps they were foreshadowing my interest in a game designed in dismemberment. I would at the weekends visit one of my friends, Brendan, from time to time, where we would do all kinds of things together, but one night I went round to his house to find him playing a darker and more sinister game than we both would normally play. See, he and I would normally play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in our spare time, which he had gotten me into, as I was mostly into single player games from around those times. I would watch him play, like how many would experience the game first, in total darkness, peeking around the corners of each hallway just in case a surprise was lurking nearby. The best part from his reaction to Chapter 9 would be where he would yell out every time he would see the twitches. I honestly did not understand until I saw how fast they were and heard the noises they would make. After a week or so, he would tell me that he beat the game, probably in the funniest way possible. However, at this time I wasn't really interested in that type of game at all. I mostly enjoyed action-adventure games with some slight horror lineage, or none at all, like Zelda, Banjo-Kazooie, Dead Rising, Assassin's Creed, or even Bioshock. However, that would soon change. See, his friends soon convinced me to play a different game, one that I wasn't used to playing, and that would be Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And oh boy, was it a treat. Or at least it would have been when I would be wanting sleep. This is exactly the type of gameplay that had started me on my journey into the dark abyss of video game horror, with the grim and dark atmosphere bearing down on me, the monsters that would patrol from time to time with their own disturbing, twisted appearances, along with the story to further pull me along. Even though I wanted to go home after a few hours playing, but I just could not stop myself until it was done. However, a week or so after this, Brendan would tell me of a new game coming out that he is really excited for, that being Dead Space 2, that would be coming out in a few months' time. Some of you may say to me right now, didn't you know of the trailers? How did you not see it? Well, as I said, I wasn't really interested in Dead Space, and to top it, I wasn't much of a third-person player. I was more into first-person shooters like Call of Duty, so that is the reason why. I would put the game's release off, focusing on other things, but Brendan would return telling me that I should get the game as there will be multiplayer, so we could face the terror together, and after some weeks, I finally gave into it and watched the trailers. At first I was thinking of a game like Amnesia due to the Ring Around the Rosie trailer, but then when I watched the launch trailer, I thought, okay, this is just another generic third-person shooter with alien space zombies, basically a Halo ripoff. As I told my friend, I distinctly remember telling him that I would never play this Halo bootleg, but after a while of him and his friends trying to convince me otherwise, it would be a week before the launch, and I would go to a second-hand store to buy Dead Space to see what all the fuss was to be about. However, as I would get home, I was soon to be educated on the difference between backseat gaming and front seat gaming, as the game would take me completely by surprise. I would boot up my Xbox 360 and place the disc into the console, and soon enough I would get into the main menu. See, most horrors will just give you an environment to deal with at first glance within the menu. However, Dead Space opens with a series of noises that to this day I have no idea what even those are. But as you press the any key to get into the actual menu, the fog disappears and presents you with the corruption in the background and several video files that pan from left to right, which, if you do not know, is a dead goat decomposing. Yes, that is correct. They sliced its guts open, threw maggots at it, pulled its eyes into focus. I think they even recorded something and then reversed it to make it look like a tentacle wrapping around someone's arm. Seriously though, real talk, Glenn, if you are watching this, which I kinda doubt, but bear with me here. If you have those video files in a WMV or an MP4 or an actual video file, then please send them to me, as this all deeply fascinates me. On top of that, the developers had to go through real mutilated corpses. Well, not actual real ones, just photos, obviously. Not everyone can be a murderer. Anyway, they did that for the designs of the corpses that would litter the corridors and the locations of the ships, along with the designs for the necromorphs. Seriously, they did all of that stuff that would be classified as soul rendering to all of us, that would require therapy afterwards. You there, you watching this video, tell me of a studio that actually put themselves through harm's way to create something special for our entertainment. Anyway, let's move past the logistics and get back into my first experiences. As this video is not called Dead Space is Important, I would leave that up to the retrospective artists. My main experience was, oh, cool. Honestly, nothing really scared me in this game, and I'm not going to lie, it was disturbing, but just not overall very scary. But hey, I was used to rushing through the areas, blasting foes to bits. I'll tell you what it was like. My first experience with 343 Guilty Spark. You know, the flood level. The big reveal. There you go. I mean, the game's atmosphere was amazing and the music just blends so well together. So through the first 6 chapters, I thought the game was fun, but honestly, I didn't get why the game had my friend too scared to go around the corners without aiming out first. But over the course of the game, I started to feel sick to my stomach as I was playing through the entirety of the game from start to finish, and I could see why people were calling it scary. The overall atmosphere is what got me, with flesh growing on the walls, the crew turning into necromorphs, and the feeling of loneliness really reached into me, as the game makes sure that you are alone most of the time. The feeling of dread is absolutely amazing with the environmental storytelling, and it did not take me long to understand that the pulsating mass growing through the walls, blocking off corridors, spreading throughout the course of the game, was actually alive, and it made me think, could this happen to me? But yeah, some things really got to me, like moving back to the tram control room will have a necromorph walk past you, but only showing a shadow, which further cements a feeling of confusion, as even when you back into the corridor, the sound still plays, but the entity doesn't show, giving you all the assurance you need to know that you might just be going insane. The difficulty I set for myself was on medium because I was entering the game thinking that this was to be the scariest game of all time, but in my opinion, disturbing, yes, scary, no. but I get like that with my trips to the cinema as well. Like my time at Insidious 2, I swear every single jump scare I was subjected to, there would be only confusion coming from my mind, as the whole theater would scream out all of the air from their lungs, like this was to be the scariest thing they had ever witnessed. And I was sitting there like this was just an average Monday. Seriously, I was laughing at the movie when people screamed, but at that time I was well equipped to deal with their attempts to make me run in terror, as I already faced the terror alone in this game, Dead Space. However, there would be a time where jump scares truly got me, and it made me think of the game long after I had set it down, and the sinister little message it had left for me, that being Nicole is dead, soon did help with that. You get this by taking the first letter of every single chapter and, well, you know. And she would jump out at Isaac and the player, screaming as the game cut to black. That truly scared me, and for every single playthrough afterwards, I could not watch the screen before it was to play, as it would just freak me out. After my first time playing, of course. But that was more than enough to get me hooked for the years to come. Most of my first experiences shrouded within my distorted memories, but I will tell you of why this game has continued to be an active presence in my life and on this channel before we end today's video, as I'm trying really hard not to do a review or a retrospective, as there are better people out there that do that already. So like many games, fans often do develop an emotional connection to them, and that's why many are quick to defend the game even if it's trash, or to defend a studio when they brought it into existence, but I'm not going to get into that today. Many players often relate to the struggles and the hardships of the main characters that are being subjected to the overall events the game takes place in. For me, well, it's a point in my life that I don't really like to talk about, but I will give you the short story, as the longer version has more twists and turns that would put the writers of the Saw franchise to shame. The next part isn't exactly back in 2010, but happens a bit later on in my life, as there would be events in my life that actually make me think on comparisons to Dead Space and the characters and the organizations within the story. The reason I feel such a strong connection to Isaac is because of his hardships, his struggles with mental health. You see, it took me a long time to actually come to terms with my own mental well-being. With me, I suffer from chronic depression, which goes away then returns with a vengeance for a week or so, along with some PTSD. So with Isaac in the first game, I could feel for what he had to be going through, especially with his struggle and with everything getting in the way of the search for his beloved. I felt like this game actually might understand my issues, but hey, maybe I was reading a little too much into it and perhaps projecting. But with the events, it seemed to be a slight parallel to what I had been going through, or was currently going through. With the search for Nicole, I was searching for someone or something to give my life meaning, and much like Isaac, that light at the end of the tunnel seemed to be getting dimmer and dimmer with every fleeting moment. With the betrayal of Kendra in her goals, I too had been betrayed, much like Isaac, but by a group of people who claimed to be my friends, only to find out that they didn't actually care all too much, and only saw me as a means to an end, like how Kendra uses Isaac and vice versa with the marker. However, when you see Isaac dealing with the undertone of the story of Dead Space 2, I felt like this social commentary only strengthened my connection to the series, with how I felt about myself, as with Isaac, he had constantly been beating himself up, telling him that it is his fault she went to the Ishimura, Isaac feeling guilt for his part to play. With myself, I felt like I had a sense of misplaced guilt, when what happened to me and the delusion that was born from those events was entirely on my own shoulders. When looking back at those events, I can see now that I was dealing with some very manipulative people that can also be seen to be the behavior of some of the unitologists that are featured within the games. All in all, I feel more connected to Isaac than I do any other video game character due to his mental health and how he has struggled to overcome his issues. And perhaps that is what visual we're going for, which is actually a big brain move, to be fair. So that was my first and later experiences with Dead Space and how I connect to them. I know this video was a little bit all over the place, but with the dreadful atmosphere, the amazing lighting work that actually holds up to this day, and the story that seems like they had taken the best aspects of old sci-fi horror stories and wrapped them into something new, building on what came before, Dead Space was, and still is, probably an amazing experience. Sure enough, I came into this game with a lot of skepticism, but over time I've grown to commit to a love-hate relationship with the series. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, then please hit the like rating. Comment your thoughts below and I look forward to hearing from you. Sign up to join the British Alliance today by subscribing and ringing in the notification bell for more updates to the channel, and I will see all of you among the cosmos, and be sure to have a good one.